They can start at the beginning. What do you think? What do you think?
Yeah.
All right, welcome to the first annual Harvard Westlake Works Career Fair in the bustling Feldman Memorial Gallery. From the holiday October 5th, 2022, but I'm ecstatic that you still came. I'm ecstatic that we got Josh Little, class of '93, with us, and we can kind of sort of bring the idea of what we're trying to get across with Works, and you leveraging and using the Harvard Westlake network, the community that we have, to really give our students and young alumni, that lead, that helping hand, that guiding hand, all the way to perhaps, some sort of leadership into, their industry of choice. So I guess, Josh, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Happy to be here. Josh Litter, as I said, class of '93. So I graduated almost 30 years ago. I spent a lot of time here on this campus. Now I work as an executive vice president of global supply chain at a company called T3 Micro. I brought a couple products here. We make high-end flat irons and curling irons and hair dryers and all kinds of hair tools, and sell them globally through high-end retail and .com.
Now, we talked a little bit at homecoming, right? We said we're gonna meet up, and we did. It was great. Can you talk just a little bit about, before we get into it, just your time here at Harvard Westlake, and then maybe college a little bit, and then
Sure.
how that, this is an awesome story.
Yeah. No, I came here in 7th grade, and I spent 7th through 12th grade here on this campus before we merged with Westlake. So that was my junior and senior year. Had an unbelievable experience. To this day, my lifelong friends are from Harvard Westlake that I see all the time. Yeah, it was an incredible experience at Harvard Westlake. And then I went on to go to Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia. Spent 4 years there, and then came back to Los Angeles and been working in various supply chain roles in different companies since 1997, so about 25 years. And now actually my 6th grade daughter is applying to Harvard Westlake for 7th grade.
Okay.
I got a third grader at St. Matthews in Palisades, and yeah, it's fun to be here for alumni events and for the homecoming weekend.
And again, the dedication is overwhelming. I'm overjoyed that you took time over the holiday to really kind of sort of launch us, kick us off, and hopefully you come back next year. I promise you. Guys, and really get at it. So with that being said, let's get into it. Okay? What's happening? What trends do you see that are happening in your industry, and how do they specifically affect your company?
Sure. And first of all, I'm also really excited you're doing this type of career fair on supply chains. You don't often see supply chain represented in these type of events. So I'm happy to always talk about it, because a lot of the kids in high school and even college don't really know what supply chain is. So I always happen to discuss it. But like I've told some people, a lot of people recently, in the last, 2 years, it's really been a roller coaster. It's been a absolute pandemic roller coaster. So if you're in the world of supply chain, and just to back it up a little bit, I'm talking about logistics, procurement, the warehousing side, manufacturing, engineering, product development, purchasing, all of that is under supply chain. And it's been, like I said, really up and down since the pandemic started, and continues right now. So some of the trends are, for example, ocean freight has gotten to be extremely expensive and really hard to get containers at one point last year, where it used to cost me $5,000, let's say, to ship something in a container, a full container from China to Ohio. That same container then cost me $20,000 about 6 months ago. So 4 times more expensive. Our company's seeing trends in like raw materials and components are very hard to get. Probably read in the news about chips, like cars having lack of chips, so that their car manufacturing has been slowed down. And that's the same thing in our world. We make these flat irons and hair dryers and things like that also use electronic chips to control the heat and things like that. And it's been very hard to get those components, and things have gotten much more expensive and longer. It affects everything from our production lead times, and all that. And on top of that, there's congestion on our ports. Again, I think the supply chain became front and center this past year and a half, I'd say, because the ports got really congested. And then everybody started to read about supply chain. And I've lived this for many years, but the port delays have been sometimes months long. It takes 3 extra months to get your products into a warehouse. So all that is a domino effect, and it's really, really challenging on our entire industry.
So we got a changing environment, changing dynamics within the industry. I've decided that I want to get involved in the industry. What does it look like? What should I expect to get in? Obviously, everybody, we start, and we work our way up, but what does advancement look like?
Yeah, it's interesting. I was thinking about my company. So in my company, there's roles when you come in straight from college, like you can be a junior, let's say engineer, or come in as a lab engineer, which we've hired at my company, some lab engineers straight out of college. That type of role, you come in, you work hard for a few years, a couple of years, you can get promoted. The person at my company got promoted to a senior engineer within a couple of years, and then the next step would be a manager. But I know in logistics overall, there's definitely some entry level roles that people get into without a lot of experience, and that's in the areas of logistics. There's procurement and there's planning roles. Engineering, product development, I mentioned that before. Quality, I'd say, are the areas where someone can get into on the entry level for supply chain. I think advancement depends on the company. So my company is pretty small, so there's not a lot of big teams, and so you have maybe it's harder to become a manager or director to have people report to you because it's a smaller company. But if you're at a huge company and you do a good job, you should be able to get promoted every 2 to 3 years, I'd say, depending on your performance.
And if I was a high school student looking, or just curious about the industry, let's say you probably don't know what we want to do in high school.
Right.
It's a little bit off track, but generally, what would you suggest? If you were you looking back at your year, what would you suggest about, the industry and how you would want to get started?
Well, I think what's different now than when I was coming out of school in the early 90s is you can actually take supply chain as a major, right? You can take supply chain as an undergraduate major. You probably could take certain versions of supply chain courses in late high school, and obviously through college, which really didn't exist when I was coming out of high school and college. So I'd recommend people doing that. Also, there's free webinars out there, that large companies put on to learn more about the supply chain world. And that's a great way to understand what's happening in supply chain on a real-time basis. And then try to make some contacts at companies who do hire entry level. So like my company occasionally brings on an intern, even some paid intern, sometimes usually paid, and they can just learn and do some job shadowing and things like that.
No, look at it. We didn't have off track. Very important. Right? We're going to training now, right? So what types of training programs does the company offer, or should you look for if you're looking at manufacturing, supply chain, distribution, like what kinds of programs are offered, and what does the beneficial program look like? What is one that will really get you going?
Yeah, like I was mentioning in my company, I think the internship program has been fantastic. People come in, we have an intern right now in our lab who's an engineer, undergraduate engineer, and interested in quality and in testing. And so he's come in and he's working with a more experienced lab engineer, and he's learning a ton about how product development works, how product testing works, compliance, things like that. We do a lot of informal programs at our company, which I assume other companies like us do as well, where you can do a job shadow of someone in a different department and learn what they're doing and follow them for a day or two on their job. What else we do? I know in my group, some people have come to me and said, hey, can I take a paid class or we pay for it. It's a seminar or a conference or a class. And T3 Micro, my company, subsidizes that for employees. So you can really start to network a little more with industry people and learn the content of whatever, whatever course you're taking. And that has been really beneficial to people to gain more skill, get better at their job, and hopefully move up within the organization. And then as you get more senior, I'm doing executive coaching right now where they're actually helping me get coached on how to become a better leader of people through an outside third party as well. So I think, my company's small, we offer that. I imagine I come from bigger companies. I previously worked at Mattel, I worked at Disney, and those companies have a ton of programs like that, especially for the entry level people.
So it does seem like there's a lot of support, and if you wanted to, you can use that support, that training to go in whatever direction that you'd like to.
Absolutely. And people from supply chain come from so many different backgrounds, right? There isn't just a one set background you need to come from. And so people have a diverse experience and they come in and say, oh, this supply chain is interesting, and depending on their experience, they can fit in really well.
Josh, I felt like I've known you for a while. A little smooth transition to the next question, right? What kind of skills you need? What are we looking at? Do I need to be kind of sort of bred in a supply chain kind of path, or can I come from a different world?
No, you really can come from different worlds. It's funny. I was a sociologist, right? I was in a liberal arts college. I didn't really know what I wanted to be when I grew up, and I took sociology and thought it was interesting. But then I came out of college and I got a job at Disney doing logistics for a family entertainment center, and I did, with operations. I didn't know anything about operations and logistics, but I think what helped me progress in my career is I had the attention to detail, the sense of urgency. I always tell people in the world of supply chain, you gotta be detail oriented. You have to have a sense of urgency. That's huge, because think about someone that works for me in freight and logistics. Like that stuff is so time sensitive. And there's a problem at the port or with your shipments, you need to be getting on the phone or on the email or the messages and getting things done. So that's critical. I think a big one is like a willingness to learn, because again, a lot of people don't study supply chain, don't have that background, and haven't taken courses on any of these subjects. And so you're absorbing and learning from your colleagues once you start working in that world. What else? Let's see. Good with numbers, like being analytical, being able to multitask, being ethical. That's a big thing with our company and any company, just being ethical, do the right thing.
That's always
That works for everything, right?
That's good, for sure. So for our Harvard West score, there are going to be some middle schools, I'm sure, going to be watching, but really for our high schools who are looking for, kind of sort of planting those seeds as far as college and what they want to do afterwards. How can they have an impact? How can they participate? How can they learn more? How can they possibly even get their start in your industry or at your company?
Yeah, I think I mentioned a little before. I think we covered a little of this, but in high school, a great start in our industry, and from my personal experience, it's like trying to go and work in a lab. In our product development lab, for example, that's something you can do without much experience. And we have people come in and do, 3D printing and product testing and things like that, without much previous background. They're learning how product works and all that. I'd say, again, try to find an internship type of role. Then in the college, if you're coming out of college, I do believe a lot of these companies in supply chain are hiring entry-level people. And I was thinking about it, it's usually like order management, logistics, quality, those areas. And some positions require people to have a little bit more background experience when you come in, but there's plenty of entry-level positions in those areas, especially at the larger company. And even like you're interested in like third-party logistics providers or freight companies, they hire a lot of people straight out of college as well.
You mentioned the job shadowing earlier. We know career day is in May. Are those job shadowing opportunities? Are they open for high school students? Are they open for juniors?
Yeah, potentially. Again, our company is very small, so it would be a specialized type of thing. But we can accommodate them something, I'm sure, for even if it's a short period, want to learn what we do at our company. And again, there's organizations and groups out there in the supply chain world, especially in Southern California, who will help people late high school, early college get more exposure. So yeah, but those opportunities are there.
Sure, absolutely. I gotta transition away a little bit from my selfishness. I'm always looking for Westlakers. Let's talk about your industry a little bit.
Yeah,
You hit upon it earlier with some of the challenges from the pandemic. And maybe some of them are still, maybe some of them are challenges that have arisen indirectly as a result of the pandemic. So what's going on? Like, what are you trying to overcome? What are you looking at? And like,
yeah, I think there's several factors that are really, really challenging in our environment in supply chain world, both on the industry level and our company. So a few things I've been thinking about was the economy, obviously the pandemic, there's the volatility right now in the whole economy, oil, gas, this is a big one, right? We live in Los Angeles. I saw a station yesterday that was selling 92 octane gas for $7.99, right? It's $8. Okay, we're all feeling it when you fill up our cars. How it equates to my world, my company does 150,000 e-commerce orders a year, something like that, right? Close to that number. Every one of those e-commerce orders, we pay for the freight to get to the customer. That freight used to cost us, let's say $9 a package. It's costing us $15, $16, $17 a package now because you're paying all this incremental freight, fuel surcharges, things like that. That's killing, that's really a killer for companies in this industry right now. Same thing you're paying for any kind of full truckloads or ocean freight. Just as oil and fuel goes up, our whole industry, everybody spends a lot more money. Another interesting example I was telling someone about recently is government relations. Believe it or not, is a big thing, right? Because the way that the U.S. and China interact, for example, and how our governments get along, obviously impacts how import duties and tariffs work. So as relations got a little bit worse over the years, the Trump administration, there was a whole lot of new China goods taxes and duties put into place that affect even our type of products. So some products now cost 25–30% more to import because of these import tariffs, and that's all about governments and how they are working with each other or not working with each other. And so that's been very challenging on importers like T3 Micro and really everyone else in import products. It's kind of out of our immediate control, but it's something that really affects the industry, and it's a huge challenge.
Addendum to that sidebar. Now, just a general question. Are you guys thinking, is there an industry trend towards hiring government relations experts? You see like social media. Like they got a guy or
it's
just about.
I mean, when I worked at Mattel or at Disney, they have government relations departments. So the bigger companies all have it. When you're a small company like ours, it obviously doesn't really make sense because we're not big enough. But sure, that's a big deal for a lot of companies to have that, and try to lobby and try to work towards your interests of the company. But we'll see what happens. But it's really been tough on the importers in the last 3 or 4 years.
And speaking of, let's get into the micro. Let's talk about T3 a little bit. How would you describe the culture? How would you describe the feeling? Obviously, you worked at some bigger shops, and now you're here. Like, how would you describe what's the company culture?
For our company, it's really a collaborative culture. I know probably everybody said that, but it truly is. I mean, we work all in person I've been there for 5 years. And my first, almost 2.5, 3, we're in an office, a traditional, going to work every day like most people used to do. And everybody got to know each other really well, and we were close, and we worked really tightly. We knew how everybody's style was. And so it's a real collaborative culture. So then when we went home at the start of the pandemic, and now we've actually decided as a company that we're going to be 100% remote. So we all work from home, except for I have a small lab and office in El Segundo with a product development and engineering team there. But generally, we're all remote now. Collaboration is even more important because we're on these type of Zoom calls and Teams meetings all day long. So you're seeing everybody on the screen. It's a team first environment. We said our company. And it's a tight-knit crew, and I think it's the one part that's a little harder is when you bring on new people, especially during the pandemic. We're hiring people from all around the country now because we're remote. it's a little harder for them to feel the culture. So our company does like monthly events to pull everybody in on Zoom. We even got together in person a couple times with everybody, but just to get everybody to be closer to these non-work sort of team building type of fun things. But yeah, you got to have the collaboration and kind of put the growth goals of the company ahead of personal, personal goals.
So you see obviously a transition in 5 years, but you were there when it started.
Sure.
Like you described it as normal, and you also described it as now that new normal.
Yeah.
In that transition, what is the thing that you like the most? What's the part of the culture or the part of the where you're like, yeah, this is endured, this is why I'm here, this is why I like it.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, I think that the team is so team oriented. We collaborate, we get on the meetings, and people are rooting for each other. I think when we do a monthly meeting, for example, and we always do this section, someone on my team actually runs it for the whole company. It's called a shout out. And you give shout outs to people in your organization. It doesn't have to be in your group. It could be anywhere in our company that's done something that's helped you or something that you appreciate or gone above and beyond. And these shout outs become a really fun way to recognize people during these big company meetings where everybody's online. And then people are in the chat going, oh, good job. You still can get that collaboration even in a remote environment. So we still have that. I love, we did a mixology event last week. We made cocktails online with the whole company, and we were all with someone running the course, and it was all live, and we bought ingredients, and it was fun. And we got the banter while we're making our drinks. So things like that, just kind of keeping the connection with people rather than versus just log in, log out, and do your meeting, but still have that personal connection too.
That's big.
Yeah.
And we'll wrap it up. We know obviously, well, this is all gonna be on, we're recording on Zoom, so it'll be on the platform, it'll be on the Works website. I'm gonna share it with the student body. Are there anything you want to leave the alumni students with before you obviously you contact how to reach whether it's T3 stuff and you personally, like kind of a parting message or
Well, all I'd say is that I'm really excited and that you're even focusing on supply chain. I'm passionate about the industry. I knew nothing about it when I was in high school and college, and now I live it every day. And it's so important to our daily world. Having experts who know how to deal with manufacturing and logistics and all the facets of supply chain. So I would just say, if you are at all interested in this subject, like we talked about earlier, try to seek out ways to get involved, right? And learn more and see if it's something you want to focus on in college or take some more courses on. Because it's a huge industry, it's an exciting industry. I tell people there's never a boring day like in logistics, because you never know what's going to happen, right? So you never get bored. And that's all I'd say. Just be a sponge and learn what you can, and decide if that's something you're interested in as you go into your career.
sure. Josh is on the platform, so you can message him that. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Take care.
Thank you.
Stop here. Let's stop. Pause recording. Yes.